Hey everyone, Mark Cruth here. I'm super excited to be here chatting with y'all today. I'm the modern work evangelist for Atlassian, and I want to tell you about some trends in work. But before we do that, I actually want to start out by telling you about someone who's kind of miserable at their job. Meet Jen. Well, this isn't actually Jen. It's a stock photo because, had to protect the innocence and all. But let's just say it's Jen for all intents and purposes. Well, Jen works for a financial organization here in the Detroit area. We've worked with each other and known each other for years. The place she works at is actually known for their teamwork culture in the area. So when COVID hit, they really struggled with not being able to collaborate the same way they used to, face to face. The same issue that all of us faced. Well, last spring, the company finally decided to open up their doors and welcome people back to the office, arms wide open and all. And when they did, they told people, if you live near the office, within 50 miles, we want you back in the office to collaborate 2.5 days a week. Now, there's two things about that statement that kind of bother me. First, there's that odd number, 2.5 days instead of 3 days or 2 days. Why not pick one of those? I can't imagine the commute problem there. Well, we're not going to worry about that. Second, though, what that organization failed to realize before making that statement was that after the last few years, many people were no longer local. They moved away from the city. New people were hired that were just never local to begin with. The makeup of the organization drastically changed. For Jen, she's a project manager, and the project she was working on involved team members from all over the place. California, Arizona, New York. You want to know how many people from Jen's project were actually local at the time? Just her. She found herself going into the office 2.5 days a week, sitting at her desk and joining virtual meetings all day long. She might see someone she knows, maybe at the coffee station, but beyond that, the way she actually collaborated with her team didn't change, except now she's got to commute again. Let's just say Jen's not very enthusiastic about her job anymore. The problem with this organization and many others is this idea that they're nostalgic for the way we used to work. They remember the good old times prior to the radical shifts we all had to go through over the last few years. They live in the past, remembering things like, remember when we could just huddle together in those comfy seats by the window and solve problems? Oh, yeah, I love that. Or remember when we all could just jump into a conference room full of whiteboards and brainstorm? Oh, do you remember? I remember. Those were great times. Those rose-colored nostalgic glasses have, what I believe, have resulted in us focusing on the wrong trends impacting modern work, meaning the work we do today. Trends like being hybrid versus remote versus in office, the Great Resignation, even things like quiet quitting. To me, all these sound like vanity terms. Let's actually think about this from the perspective of Jen's story now. So her organization wanted to bring everyone back to the office to build that collaborative spirit again because COVID had lost it. So they determined that in order to really bring it back, we had to do what we did before. They went back to what they knew versus innovating on how to improve collaboration in a new distributed world. Now, I'm not saying these trends don't feel real, because they do. We see them all over the place. What I'm saying is that if you look at the data on how teams work, these trends tend to be more headline-catching eye candy. In the words of Obi-Wan, these are not the trends in modern work you're looking for. And I know this because here at Atlassian, we spent years studying how teamwork happens to find out what trends we actually should be focused on. Many of you know us for our tools, Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, you name it. But what you might not know is that we're obsessed with teamwork. Not just how people are working, but what's holding teams back, what's pushing them forward, how do we unleash them? It's no coincidence that our stock ticker symbol is TEAM, team. So we're fascinated with this area, and so fascinated that we actually brought an entire team on board, actually focus on learning what makes teams tick. And over the last few years, we've started to publish their findings in a report we called The State of Teams. Here we focus on topics like team health, which is made up of elements like team engagement, team performance, climate and culture, and even team sustainability. Doing this actually led us to discover that only 17% of teams today are actually considered healthy. That means only 17% of teams are actually hitting the mark on those elements I mentioned. We've also focused on trending topics to see if there's really any merit to them. Our 2021 report was focused on learning whether or not successful, healthy teams are remote, in office, or maybe hybrid. You want to know what the result was? No significant difference. Hybrid workers performed maybe a little bit better, but in general, no one group performed better than others. And this goes back to my point earlier. The idea of hybrid and remote and in-office sounds like an important trend we should focus on, but it's not. Instead, we found the more important trends we need to focus on are things like building alignment within and across teams, creating psychological safety in the work environment, and encouraging teams to take the time to innovate. So each year, we come out with an updated report with the latest findings on the state of teams, which includes the latest trends that we believe are worth watching and other pieces of the data. Well, the 2022 report is scheduled to come out the first week of November, which, if I do the math, that's next week. And since we've just got a few days before then, I figured I'd give you all a sneak peek into some of the data today. So, don't tell anybody. We're friends, right? Be cool, be cool. I can't share with you exact numbers from the report, so we'll have to wait for the final product for that. But what I can do is share with you 3 of the most significant trends that we're seeing in modern work and give you some tips and tricks that you can do to start reacting to them. So let's take a look. The first trend does have to do with location, but not the way you might think. As we talked about earlier, the research we did in 2021 revealed that the location of work didn't matter when determining team success. So we decided to dig in a little deeper and see what might. Come to find out, what matters is the flexibility to determine where you want to work. Maybe you need to be in the office for a day for some in-person team collaboration, and then you want to spend the rest of the week working from home or from a local co-working location. We found that flexibility leads to higher levels of well-being, reduced burnout, and even improves our overall perception of our organizational culture. Most importantly, though, this is actually the trend worth watching, we found that having workplace flexibility leads to having more innovative teams. In our research, teams that have the ability to be flexible with their work location experience a 25% increase in innovation compared to those teams without that same flexibility. And when you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. If you have flexibility, you have a culture of trust. If you have a culture of trust, you have an organization that's willing to experiment and fail. And if experimentation and failure are part of how your organization works, innovation blooms. When it comes to flexibility, we here at Atlassian follow a program called Team Anywhere. I remember it was August of 2020 when our founders announced that, hey, the world's changed, we probably need to change too. And so Team Anywhere was born and kind of became our model for how we operate in a distributed world. The program gives us the freedom and the resources to work where we want, when we want, in order to do our best work. In the last 2 years, we've actually stood up an entire team focused on enabling Team Anywhere for Atlassians, doing things like unlocking new locations where people can work, as well as providing coaching support to teams that want to learn how to improve their ways of working in a distributed world. To encourage flexibility and innovation, we've actually even started updating our physical spaces to better support being a distributed first company. We most recently opened up our new Austin office in Texas, which was intentionally designed with Team Anywhere in mind. We focused on elements like increasing the number of team spaces and private areas, as well as just building a lot of open space. We don't want the office to simply be a place you go to a desk and you sit down and do your work. Instead, we want the office to be a place that our team members go and use as a resource to collaborate with each other in new, innovative ways. Now, if you're part of a distributed team, but maybe you're not feeling very innovative, let me give you something today that you can use to hopefully help your team color outside the lines a little. Along with the research we did into teamwork, Atlassian also loves to share how we work together. And we do this by distributing our ways of working in what's called the Atlassian Team Playbook. This is an online resource that has a set of different plays that anyone can use. I want to specifically point you to one of our plays called Disruptive Brainstorming. Now, if you want to improve your team's ability to innovate, you must build a team culture around brainstorming. This play outlines how to run a powerful brainstorming session with step-by-step instructions on how to get the most out of that session if you're not sure where to start. Scan this QR code and to head over to that play and check it out for yourself. I encourage you to try it out with your team. Experiment a little. That's what innovation's all about, right? The next trend we're seeing kind of caught me by surprise, but now that I'm aware of it, I kind of see it everywhere. Over the last few years, it feels like we've really turned the dial from 0 to 10 on everything, right? How we work, how we live, you name it. And to do it, we've had to innovate like crazy. As we've been coming up with new ideas to solve all the world's problems, A silent enemy has actually slipped through our defenses. You may not have noticed. And the worst of all, many of us didn't even realize they were there until they had already tackled us to the ground. I'm talking about imposter syndrome. If you don't know what imposter syndrome is, in the simplest of terms, it's doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. It's that nagging worry in the back of your mind that at any moment you're going to be found out for not being the person people think you are. Many of us experience imposter syndrome. Nearly half of the State of Teams participants reported back that they experienced it. I know I do. That's not the trend, though. What surprised us the most was that people who are on more innovative teams are 50% more likely to experience imposter syndrome compared to teams that don't consider themselves very innovative. That's not a good trend. What's interesting here is that the reason for this has everything to do with how we engage with each other when we innovate. Think back to a time when maybe you were brainstorming on how to solve a problem with your team. Did you ever feel like maybe your ideas weren't that good and others were better? Or maybe you felt that you just weren't good enough to help solve these problems and you wondered why you were even in that session? Well, that's imposter syndrome sneaking right up on you. To combat this feeling, we need to be intentional around how we innovate and brainstorm as a team, including how we share feedback and ideas with each other. At the hedge fund Bridgewater, one of the ways they improve their innovation is by sharing direct feedback with people to make them better. That sounds kind of like something that most organizations would probably put on their website to sound like a great place to work. But for Bridgewater, they take this to a whole new extreme. If you presented a subpar idea to their team, they would rip it apart while you watched. And if you could have done a better job presenting that idea, they will let you know that too. They call this practice radical transparency, and it might actually seem like it cultivates imposter syndrome, but in reality, it actually fights it back among employees because it's part of how they intentionally work. When new people join, they are told right away what to expect, and that the goal is not about being adversarial, but to create better ideas and honestly develop even better people. I'm not saying that we should all be like Bridgewater. I know I wouldn't thrive in that environment. But what we should do is learn from their example and kick imposter syndrome out of the door for our innovative teams by being more intentional with how we work and innovate together. Heading back into the team playbook, let me introduce you to the idea of a working agreement. I like to think of these things as a contract on how teams want to intentionally work and collaborate together. It's like a way to make those things that are implicit within a team, like how we give feedback, explicit. I've run hundreds of these working agreements in my career, and I can honestly say that no matter the team, software, marketing, C-suite, everyone benefits from taking some time to become a little bit more intentional about how they want to work together. So grab this QR code and access the play and learn how you can actually create a working agreement for your team. And a bonus idea here, when you're doing your working agreement, talk about how the team wants to express gratitude with each other. We found that a simple thank you to team members can actually improve psychological safety for the entire team and reduce that person's feelings of imposter syndrome. It's the little things that count, right? Alrighty, the last trend I want to share with you is something that might not be new, but it's definitely something that doesn't seem to get enough attention, even though it impacts all of us. Outside of going to awesome conferences like this, how much time would you say you spend in meetings each week? And of those meetings, how many of those could have been maybe an email or a Slack message or nothing at all because the topic was irrelevant to you and you're still kind of wondering why you were invited? We've all experienced bad meetings, but bad meetings don't just suck away our time. They're actually burning us out. The trend we're seeing is that the more time you spend in meetings, the more likely you're to go all Human Torch on us and flame out. We found that people who spend more than 20 hours in meetings each week are 35% more likely to experience burnout compared to others spending less. And if you're a remote worker, you could be spending 60% more time in meetings compared to your other colleagues in the office. Wow, yeah, that's a little bit worrisome, right? Now, I'm not going to lie. Eliminating meetings is hard. It's really easy to say, we'll just handle that in a Slack message. And then when push comes to shove, we just find ourselves defaulting to a meeting. What we really need to do in order to fix the burnout problem is get better at how we run meetings. I recently worked for a telecom customer who had a massive staff meeting that they would hold every week. Think 50 people, 2 hours, only 1 to 2 people normally talking about topics that ended up meandering much longer than they ever should have. It was an important meeting because lots of information was being shared, but the general sentiment was, this was actually a waste of time. It was exhausting. I sat in on a few of these meetings and afterwards actually worked with the meeting owner to come up with a couple experiments we could run to see if we can improve the overall meeting dynamics. First thing we did was figured out that some of the content could simply be shared in Confluence, such as corporate announcements and other less critical topics. So awesome, we can pull that out. Other topics that required collaboration needed to be brought into the meeting. So the second thing we did was ensure that there was structure to the meeting in the form of a shared agenda. This way we could establish topics, speakers, time boxes, all that stuff to kind of keep the meeting moving along. Now, after a handful of weeks, 2 things occurred. First, the meeting time actually reduced. They didn't need 2 hours anymore. 1 was just fine. Based on the amount of content they had, they could easily get through everything in 1 hour. And 2, half of the original attendees no longer needed to show up week to week. In the past, everyone showed up because they didn't know what topics would be covered and they wanted to make sure they didn't miss anything important. Now that an agenda page was being put together in Confluence and a link was sent out beforehand, people could determine if they needed to attend or not. It was great. Now, I'm not saying that we beat the burnout problem for this customer, but what we did do is we dramatically improved a bunch of people's Friday morning. They had more time to do their work, they had less stress around their meetings. Both are things that help reduce burnout. Now, if you're looking for clever ways to help reduce the amount of time you spend in meetings and make your meetings better, check out a recent article I published in the Enterprise Viewpoint magazine that includes 5 tips on how to run better meetings and help combat burnout. This includes everything from when to start your meeting to how you want to make your meeting more collaborative. Just grab that QR code and take advantage of some of these tips. If not for your sake, do it for your attendees. And one call out I want to make here is that burnout is not just a result of more meetings. It's also a result of things like Zoom fatigue. That feeling of constant anxiety from always being on camera during meetings. Even when we're in the office, we're still going to be meeting with each other virtually because work is distributed now. So, knowing that we can make meetings better, but they're not going away, and the fact that we're going to work in a distributed world where many of our meetings are still going to be virtual in the future, I want to share with you a few final tips to help you combat that Zoom fatigue-driven burnout you might be facing right now. So the first tip I have for you is that if you use Zoom, I recommend turning off the self view. Much of Zoom fatigue is linked to the fact that we simply see ourselves constantly, and it's this box, this bubble. Now, if you have a vanity problem, this tip might not be that helpful, but for the rest of us, it'll do wonders with your Zoom fatigue. Second, customize your Zoom profile picture with the statement, "I'm still listening," so that when you need to actually take a break from the camera, you can easily let people know that you're still there and listening. We do this at Atlassian, and I absolutely love the practice. And third and finally, if you need to, just turn off the camera. Give yourself the permission to put your mental health first. No one is going to die if they don't see you. If anything, you might actually inspire some people to do the same. And there you have it. The 3 trends that I think are the most fascinating findings from our latest State of Teams report. And honestly, the trends that we as a society need to spend some more time on. So as you're leaving this session, I want you to think about a couple things. Let's focus on the workplace flexibility problem and how we can improve our team's ability to innovate through enabling it. As we enable more innovation, let's figure out how we want to innovate together to help combat that imposter syndrome. And as we head into our next set of meetings after this conference, let's be more intentional with our time together so we can reduce bad meetings and Zoom fatigue to really help prevent that burnout problem. And as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this session, the report itself doesn't come out till next week. So if this conversation piqued your interest, and hold on for a second, let me get into my proper YouTuber mode. Make sure you hit subscribe if you want the details. But seriously, if you head over to our Work Life blog and subscribe to our weekly newsletter, you can get all the details when this report is available and goes live. And trust me when I say you're going to want to make sure you check out the latest report, because along with the new trends we're seeing and the myths we're debunking around modern work, we believe we found the code for what makes a legendary team, right? That's pretty cool stuff, right? Here's the secret. there are 4 attributes, which are, nah, I had you go in there for a second, didn't I? I'm not giving that away. You'll just have to wait for the report to come out. Well, let me just say thank you all for attending today. Please reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter if you want to talk more about modern work or the things we're doing at Atlassian. I would love to keep this conversation going. So again, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.